everyone. Welcome back to the Going Scared podcast. This is your host, Jessica Honegger, the founder of Noonday Collection, and this is your show for all things entrepreneurship, courage, and social impact. Today's guest came during a very timely moment for me. I have been diving into this idea of what does it mean to be content. Well, Rachel Cruze is our guide. She just released a journal called the Contentment Journal, which is a 90-day journey toward contentment, one where you actually love your life and not someone else's. Rachel also has launched a new podcast called The Rachel Cruze Show, where she shares practical tips on how to save more money, get out of debt quickly, and make progress toward your goals. Now, for those of y'all that don't know Rachel, you might know her dad, Dave Ramsey. That's right. And I share with her pretty frankly that I was a little scared to talk to someone that is related to Dave Ramsey because I myself have credit cards, but we cleared all of that up. We had a really great conversation. Before we get going, I just wanted to give a shout out to my Going Scared listeners. Thank you so much to Nicole Moline, who left a review on iTunes saying that Jessica's energy is contagious, her vulnerability is refreshing, and her enthusiasm igniting. This podcast has been a must listen to for me for months. It's introduced me to thought leaders and social entrepreneurs rethinking how our businesses emerge from passion and calling. We're all fearful about our sufficiency, but togetherness and the fear changes everything. Thank you, Jessica, for extending a hand. Wow. Hello. This made my day. If you guys have listened to the Going Scared podcast, I would love you to pay it forward by just going and leaving a little review. Write just a couple of sentences, and this way more listeners can discover these conversations. And trust me, today's conversation is one that you are going to want to share over and over and over. I'm constantly trying to find this balance between what does it mean to strive and go after your dreams and go after your goals, but to do it from a place of contentment and gratitude. That's what we talk about today. Well, Rachel, I have been super excited to talk with you because I am in love with one of your best friends, Christy Wright.
Oh, yes. Oh, my goodness. She's not just the best. Just so fun.
She is. And I told her this when I came up to y'all's studio to record for her show. I seriously thought I was going to be struck by lightning because I have been in such horrible credit card debt.
Oh, stop, Jessica. We welcome everyone with open arms, no matter where you are.
I don't know. I always thought of Dave Ramsey as like hardcore, super hardcore. And so I was like, okay, is this okay? My heart was beating. I was like, is this okay? I'm going to share my story. And I mean, I still have credit cards. I think they're great. And anyway, I'm curious, do you get that a lot? Like, do you see sometimes people like avoiding you? They're like, oh my gosh, I'm in debt right now. I can't even look Rachel in the eyes.
No, it's more on like a personal note. If they're like, okay, they like confess. They feel like they have to confess to me, like, listen, I have 4 credit cards in my purse right now. I just need you to know that. I'm like, I'm good. Like, I promise, you're fine. Or like, I'll go out to dinner with none of my like good friends do this, but if I go out with someone that like I don't know super well and we're all out and they'll be like, sorry, I'm paying with my credit card. They'll like make a joke about it or something, and I'm like, trust me, I'm fine. There's other things going on in my head besides how you're paying for your dinner, so I'm good.
I see people do it to me when they're not wearing Noonday jewelry, and they'll automatically be like really apologetic, especially if they're wearing Kendra Scott, who's an Austin company. And they're like, I'm so sorry, I've got Kendra on today. And I'm like, guys, like really? Like, God bless Kendra. She's awesome, you know?
Totally. Except I don't say like, God bless MasterCard. That's probably the difference. God bless Kendra Scott, though, for sure.
I am so curious. I don't know. What has been your journey of going into the family business?
Yes. So it started, probably my path, I think, when I look back, really started when I was 15. We were always part of the company. I mean, like the first shipping department was in our living room as little kids. Like we stuffed envelopes and shipped boxes of books and like we did all that kind of stuff, kind of the grunt work as little kids. But when I was 15, I started traveling and speaking with my dad. And back then, our live events were on Saturdays. They were all day events, like 6 hours long. And I would go out before one of the breaks at each event and pitch our kids' products that we have. And so I had this whole like little 7-minute little sales pitch, stories and jokes and like all that. And so, yeah, doing that at 15. And these were, like arena like events, anywhere from 9 to 12,000 people. And so I can remember the very first one I ever did. I was so scared. Obviously, I was like freaking out. But when I got done, I remember just like having this like adrenaline high. And I remember the very first thing I said is that was so much fun. And so I learned pretty quickly that I enjoyed public speaking. I was very comfortable in front of people and on the stage. And I learned that that's uncommon in our world today. Most people are terrified of public speaking. So I probably couldn't name it then, but I think that was kind of the first stake post, if you will, in my story of God kind of opening that door for me and me learning that early in my life. And so I did that all through my sophomore, junior, and senior year of high school. I mean, on the weekends, I would travel with Dad and do that. And then when I went to college, I stopped all of that, and I was like, I'm just going to, go to school. I was away at college, and the first week I was there, I remember meeting this girl, and she started kind of telling me her story, everything about her new car she just bought, but she has a car loan with it, and like she kind of starts unpacking the story, unbeknownst to her. By any means that I'm Dave Ramsey's daughter or any of that. It was just these two 18-year-olds having this money conversation. And that was really a light bulb heart moment for me, where I realized in that moment, wow, like I'm 18 years old. I'm talking to this peer that already believes that debt has to be a part of her life, that car loans are just what you do. And she's already believed these lies at 18. And I remember thinking, like, I don't know a ton of stuff. Like, I don't know everything, but I know enough that probably could help her shift her habits early on, which will help her later in life when we graduate and all of that. So that's really kind of when my heart started more into the message, when I was coming face to face with people my own age already making mistakes with money. So when I graduated college, I sat down with my parents and I was like, this is what I want to do. I want to travel and I want to speak to high school students and college students about this topic of money. Because I looked at my dad as kind of the emergency surgeon, and I was the preventative medicine. Like if you could get this early, you can do it. So I did that whole message in that audience for about 3 years out of college. And then I looked up and I was like, wow, talking to high school students is kind of miserable. Sometimes they're a really hard audience to speak to. And
pretty much that's the hardest audience you could choose.
It is, right?
Perhaps 7th graders, maybe that's a little worse.
Oh my gosh, yes. So, I mean, at that point in my life, I was married. Now I have 2 kids, actually one on the way. And so, so with my life stages changing and growing into a mom and working, my message is definitely adapted to that. And so my audience they're a little bit older now, I guess you could say, than high school students. But yeah, that's kind of really where it started. And I think a lot of people just assume when they know that I work and this is my job and this is what I do, that, oh, of course this is what you do. You're Dave Ramsey's daughter. But Mom and Dad were so great. I credit them so much because there was zero. And when I say zero, truly zero pressure to come into the family business. Like Dad's like, if this is what you're called to do, come on, you're gonna have to work twice as hard if you choose to work here. But besides that, like you can come, but if you don't and you want to do your own thing, go do your own thing. Like there was not this pressure or this expectation of us, which now, fast forward, I've been doing it for 10 years. I look back and I'm like, man, that was such a healthy, healthy lens that they looked at this business through as parents to their, growing kids. And so I'm thankful for that. So truly, I'm doing what I'm doing today. Yes, it helps that Dave Ramsey's my dad and my story obviously intersects with his a lot, but I do it because I love it. Like it's so fun. And the fact that we get to help people day in and day out about the subject that is so stressful for people, and we get to give them a plan and give them hope, is something that I truly wake up and I do not dread coming into work. And that's a really big blessing. And so I'm thankful for that.
It is. Well, it's really inspiring, especially for me as a business owner, because this is how life used to be back in the day. You just took over your family business. And I just got back from India, and every family I meet there, it came from, they've been paper makers for 3 generations. And there's something really beautiful about it. So for me, it's really inspiring. And we don't have an exit strategy plan. We're in this for the long term. And my kids, they come alongside me. And
Mhm.
so I'm curious, like, I have no idea, but it's cool to think about that it's even an option. And I'm curious, how did y'all work out your compensation plan in high school when you were working?
I got a percentage of whatever I sold at the back book tables after I was done with my pitch. So I would like run off stage, run to one of the product tables, and however much product sold that I pitched, I got a percentage of it.
Nice. So,
Yeah, I
I
know,
mean,
true commission. And it was
yeah,
great.
because that's a lot more than minimum wage back then.
Yeah, fair. Oh yeah, I got the hookup for sure, for sure. It wasn't outrageous. I mean, it was a very small percentage, trust me, but it was enough that I was like, oh, it's motivating. And what was so fun, and you probably as an entrepreneur you would appreciate this, but like we would compare events to events, and some events that sold really well, some not so much. And I heard Dad sit with me on the plane, and we'd look at numbers, and he'd be like, okay, usually because this audience is in this part of the country, and sometimes they're just not, they don't buy as quickly. Or your pitch was off, Rachel, like that joke did not land, or this, I mean, like we like perfected the whole thing. And yeah, looking back, I'm like, it was so funny being,
That's so
15, 16
cool.
and doing it. But yeah, it was great. It's fun to look back on.
Well, I'm definitely my dad's little girl, and he's an entrepreneur, and I love him so much. So I just feel kindred spirit with all of
Yes.
what you're saying. It's really fun. What did you do with your money in high school? Were you required to like save a certain amount, or did you? Yeah, like I don't know, because you're making some pretty good cash in high school.
Yeah. So the biggest thing is we had to pay for half of our cars when we turned 16. And so Dad called that his 401 Dave plan. So they would match us for whatever we saved. And so, yeah, for a good part of that couple of years was going to that car for sure. And then after that, yeah, I just kind of put it in a little savings account. I mean, we were in charge of, Mom and Dad would give us a certain amount of money per month to spend on us, because whatever money they would spend on us normally, they kind of totaled that amount and said, okay, here's the amount we're going to give you per month on the first, put it in your checking account, and you're not allowed to ask us for money. And if you want more money, you got to go get a job. So all that to say, that was, that was kind of my separate job. So yeah, I just kind of had it to spend. And I did, I mean, obviously I saved some as well, but looking back, it was not a crazy amount. It didn't change my life financially.
It didn't change your life. Well, it changed your life, but it didn't change your
That's
financial
right.
life.
That's it. That's the right wording. Yeah.
Okay, I have these very clear memories of seeing your dad on Oprah and like getting scissors out and cutting credit cards. Is that a thing? Like, is that clear in my mind? Was that part of his shtick? Is like people would get scissors and cut up their credit cards?
Oh yeah, it still is.
Okay.
People, yeah, and they like mail it in, and they'll even like cut up their credit cards in all these crazy shapes and make pictures of them, like collages, and like send them to us. Oh yeah, it's still a thing. It's the plastic surgery of the company.
Okay.
Yeah.
Have you struggled with judgment along the way? I mean, as you have, especially you grew up in this sort of cash envelope system and just a very, more black and white formulaic approach to money. Has there come a point as you grew into an adult where you realized you were looking at a certain lens and you needed to kind of look at others more graciously? Or I don't know. I'm curious about this.
Yeah, I would say, for me, I'm just so confident in the principles because they work. And we've seen it time and time again, not just through my own story, but through literally millions of people doing this plan. And so it's based in common sense, it's based in scripture, and in my opinion, I'm like, you can't deny it. But I don't go so far to say like it's so black and white that it's a sin, like debt, for instance. I'm like, you can get to heaven with a student loan. Like you're fine. Like it's, but I do think that there's, choices you make in your life, and some better your life and some can hinder and stress your life out. And so giving people the plan to get them freedom from their money, not just the debt side, but even teaching them how to control their money and control their income and budget and be the ones to tell their money what to do versus their money telling them what to do. So all of those things, I mean, I can't deny them because I'm like, they work. And so that's the truth in my head. But yeah, I mean, are there things that, you see anomalies, you see different, like the credit card thing, you kind of laughed about that earlier, but for real, I'm like, can people have a credit card and pay it off every month? Yes. Do people do that in America? Yes. But does the average family in America owe $15,000 in their credit cards? Yes. So the average family is not paying it off every month. So our mantra is not going to be this like wishy-washy, oh yeah, if you pay it off every month, then you can get the airline miles and the points, and it's fine. We're just black and white, like, just don't have them. You don't have to worry about it, don't have them. So, like, are there people that do it? Yes. but majority of people don't. So taking this more extreme stance, I think, has given clarity to the message and help. But yeah, but
certainly it has.
Yeah. So to kind of answer your question, yes, are there things like that you see that, may not be as, I shouldn't say not as black and white, but you see other parts of the stories or other stories that are different. 100%. We see that all the time. But our stance won't change because of the outliers.
Well, Rachel, I have a credit card and I pay it off. Okay,
Jessica,
so I'm an outlier.
I trust you, Jessica. We are still going to be BFF.
But at one point I didn't. I will tell you that during the recession. And I mean, that's kind of a big part of how Noonday was birthed.
Oh, very cool. Yeah.
We were putting our groceries on the credit card. We were flipping homes. And then suddenly that went belly up. And
totally.
We had decided to adopt. And so I needed money for the adoption. So then I started this business, which is crazy because it was born out of a financial crisis, which is not usually what you do in a financial crisis, is start a business. And yet that's how Noonday was born. So
no, but sometimes your most creative juices and opportunity comes when you're at the bottom, right? Like where you feel like there are no other options. I've got to create my own. So yeah, we actually hear a lot of stories like that. So I love that. That's very cool. Very, very cool.
So speaking of beginnings, I listed last week, I was in, oh gosh, I've been in a little bit of a hard place. And some of our ambassadors had posted the podcast that you did with Christy about contentment. And this is even before I had been traveling and I hadn't gotten to the office yet and received your book, which is beautiful, by the way. I'm holding it in my hands, the Contentment Journal.
Oh, good. Oh, thanks you.
This is just such a cool story. So I was finding myself in this place of, and I don't think we hear people speak of this too much. We talk a lot about starting, and even my book, Imperfect Courage, is a little bit about like just going scared, getting people that oomph to just do the thing, to go anyway, not let perfection hold them. But with Noonday, we've started and we've actually accomplished more than a lot of business owners have. We're at the 20 million revenue mark and we've got an incredible executive team and it's this beautiful thing. And we would love to be a household brand,
Yes,
so
yes.
There's that level of like, we've reached this certain level of success and even I would say stability. We just got voted the best place to work in the Direct Sales Association by our own home office team. Like there's so much good going on. And yet, Rachel, last week in my heart, I was frustrated because we hadn't met our sales goal for the quarter. And we had pulled some levers and they weren't driving what I thought they were going to drive. And so I was sitting in my car and I was feeling like this, almost this paradox where it's like, I have so much to be grateful for. We just got voted best place to work. My kids are healthy. I'm happy. Life is good. And yet I was feeling all of this wanting of more, almost this hunger for more. So I listened to y'all's podcast and I started writing my little list. And then I just called an SOS with my executive coach. And I was like, I am not in a good place. I've got to I need someone to help get me out of this. And so as I met with her, she just said, Jessica, what I want for you over the next few days is to not want. Just surrender the wanting to want to be more and just accept what is. And I looked at her almost mad, like, what do you mean? I can't accept what is, because accepting what is isn't, it's not what I want to be. And she's like, but when we remain attached to these outcomes, we are not in contentment. And when we're not in contentment, we're not in gratitude.
So good.
And so I surrendered this whole idea of being in want. And I spent my whole weekend just accepting what is. And then suddenly gratitude started to flow. So I wanted to talk with you about your journey because I feel like I'm in the beginning of a new season of really understanding what contentment is. And I would say it is not something that I'm very good at all. So how do you define contentment and what's been your journey to contentment?
Yes. Well, welcome to the club because I don't know how many of us are good at it. I'd say it's still a struggle. Yeah. I mean, for me, contentment, and this is more out of my own personal, this is not like a scientific definition, but it's when your heart's at peace. When you're at peace. And I think you can be at peace and you still can be striving and hitting great goals. And I don't think being at peace means complacency or, just stagnant. So that's the great thing about contentment is I'm like, I think that there still is a part of us that is naturally wired, and some of us, not all of us have this kind of drive, but some of us that are more goal oriented and more like, hey, yeah, I want to see results. I'm doing this, I want to figure it out, all of that. And while I think all of that is still good, if it starts to become your identity, then that starts to mess with your heart. And so that's really the balance for me, is that I have to know where my identity is truly, 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 truly. And that's where my peace and my foundation and my line, if my lifeline is. And so when that for me is there and it's in a healthy place and I'm good there, then the other things around it can surround, like the other emotions, the other goals, everything else, but it does not make or break me. Does that make sense?
Totally. And I'm curious, how does it show up for you in your emotions and in your body when you kind of know that you're not in that place?
Oh, I would say levels of not deep anxiousness. I know a lot of people that struggle with anxiety. I'm not one of those people. That's not my story. But for sure, this unsettling, this like, oh, you're just itching for more, and thinking that the next great thing is going to make everything better. Oh, if I could just get there, everything's going to be better. But the truth is, you bring you along on the journey. And if you're not taking care of you and you're not growing personally, you're the same person that's going to be moving along. Like Winston and I, my husband, we're building a house right now. And we're so excited about it. It's been a goal for us for a few years. And we're in the last like 5-month, stretch of it. And we're picking out stuff. And it's just been really a fun process. But I had this like moment literally in the shower. I feel like it always happens in the shower, where I was like, I felt God just speak to me, where he said, Rachel, this house is going to be a blessing. It's going to be fun, but you're still going to have Caroline, your 20-month-old, in the high chair throwing food on the ground and screaming. Like that's like, you're just picking up the high chair and moving it to a different kitchen. Like it's not going to become this answer to all of your hopes and your dreams and your identity. It's not going to be that. And so everything in my life, I kind of now look through that lens of whether it's my job, whether it's a house, whether it's a vacation, or, what I think a perfect mom looks like, or whatever it is, like these things in our life that we think, oh, if I could just get there, everything will be better. But the truth is, you bring you along the way. It's still going to be you. And so that's something I have focused on. And with the Contentment Journal, walking people through this journey of starting with that gratitude, which is so true. Starting at that place of just where you are, be grateful. Be grateful for where you are. Be grateful for the smaller kitchen that you're in now, because it's fine. Like, you know what I mean? It's better than others. Like you're good. Like, be grateful for that. And then that's able to move you to humility, which I talk about in the journal, but it's true. I love C.S. Lewis's quote with humility, that humility is not thinking less of yourself, but it's thinking of yourself less. And so when you can be grateful for your life, then you're able to kind of shift your eyes up and look outward and see other people and start to serve and look for other people's needs and where you can kind of plug your life into and help them. And when you start doing that, when you're grateful for your life and you serve others within that humility, contentment just comes. It's a natural byproduct. And so that's kind of been my journey and what I figured out. But it's something I have to relearn. Like the house thing, like that epiphany came like 30 days ago, like way after I wrote the Contentment Journal, right? Like, I mean, like it was like these moments, right. You still have these kind of revelations in your life of things, and putting your hope in material things, or even I'd say within a business, that kind of thing, like that stuff, it's gonna, like, there's gonna be ups and downs, there's gonna be failures. Like it's not gonna be this everlasting place that you can be 100% sure that that it's all gonna be good. And so putting my hope in that kind of thing makes me nervous, but I do it sometimes mistakenly, and I kind of have to backtrack.
Oh, I mean, it's such a limiting belief. And this is something I said also to my last week, is to my executive coach. I said, I believe the lie that there is a point of arrival.
Amen, sister. It's good.
And I think as a businesswoman, I think, but when we get that revenue level, and it's not even about the material things or the, the profitability. I think what I've realized for me, and I don't know, I'm sure you've gotten into the Enneagram, but yes. So I'm a 7 on the Enneagram. So personal freedom and optionality, those are like things that I love. And so I think in my head, I'm like, when I get to that, when our company, when it gets to that, then maybe I am
satisfied.
Not going to have to work quite as hard, or
right.
I'm going to have this option, or I'm not going to have to do all the things that I don't necessarily love to do, or I don't know what it is, but it's this false limiting belief. And as long as we have that belief, this belief that there is a silver bullet, that there is a point of arrival, that absolutely holds us up from being in a state of contentment.
Yes, and being present, right? Like where you are currently at this very moment. There was a study done. I'm a 3, by the way, on the Enneagram. I love the Enneagram.
Okay.
But I think no matter what number you are, there's something in our human nature, because there was a study done that talked to people about their incomes, and the average household income is $52,000 a year, okay? And so they talked to someone making the average income in America, and they said, okay, do you feel rich? And they're like, no, like we're barely making bills. Like, no, definitely not rich. They said, okay, what would it take for you to feel rich? And they're like, $100,000. If I could make 6 figures, if I could make $100,000, everything would be better. They go and talk to someone making $100,000, and they said, do you feel rich? And they said, no. And they're like, okay, what would it take for you to feel rich? And they're like, to feel rich? And almost every single one of them went up to $500,000. They said, if I can make $500,000 a year, that for sure I would feel rich. What did they do? Talk to people with $500,000. And it just kept moving up. And so the finish line always moves. To your point, there's never this arrival of a destination. And so I love that phrase that you said. That's exactly right. Because it is. And there's something in our human spirit that just keeps striving for more and more and more. And while some of that, there's a point of it. Yes, again, I still believe the idea of having goals and accomplishing things. I think that there's good in that. But when that becomes what you think, okay, if I could just get there, everything's going to be better. That's a lie.
Hey, I just wanted to take a second to thank you so much for tuning in. I just really appreciate this podcast community. And on that note, I want to get to know you. It's really a hard channel to get to know people. And I want to know what has really resonated with you, what you like, what you don't like. And I'm offering you a $100 gift certificate to Noonday Collection in order to get to know you better. We are running a listener survey right now, and I just want you to tell us more about you. It seriously takes a couple of minutes. Like I said, you'll be entered to win a $100 Noonday Collection gift card to go on a shopping spree. So just head on over to bit.ly/going-scared-survey or click the link in the show notes. Again, you can visit bit.ly/going-scared-survey or just click the link in the show notes. I can't wait to get to know you. I just want to create content that really serves you and meets you where you're at. So give me 2 minutes of your life, hop on over, take the survey. Thank you. Back to the show. Okay, so what we just talked about reminds me of Chariots of Fire. And this has been so quoted ever since that movie came out. But it's when it says, when I run, I feel his pleasure. And it's that whole idea of working but letting go of the outcome.
Yes.
Because I think what I struggle with is like effort, my effort entitles me to this outcome.
No, that's so good.
That's not contentment.
Right. No.
And so, yes, it's like, how can we still work hard and be goal oriented and yet run just to feel his pleasure?
Yes. I love the quote, work like it all depends on you and pray like it depends on God, right? Like there's everything you can do. You can plant the corn, you can toil the soil, you can do your part, but he creates the rain, right? Like, I mean, at the end of the day, what's going to come from it is partly your effort, sure, that you put in, because you actually planted the corn, right? You reap what you sow, but he brings the sunshine and he brings rain. The elements that you can't control are controlled by him. And I think that what that does too is it still gives you a position, even when you do have your wins and your success, is that you can look back confidently and say, that was God. And as a believer, this is very important for me in my story, in my perspective, because I'm like, man, once I start to believe that I'm the one that's awesome in doing stuff, a lot of things start going downhill pretty quick. You know what I mean? Like there's just this element of like healthy perspective of being like, yeah, like, man, we worked hard and we did it, but ultimately the results are because God chose to bless it. And here it is. It's unexplainable, right? I mean, like I look at our business, even Ramsey Solutions, so I'm like, God, Dave Ramsey works harder than probably anyone I know and has created an incredible team, is very intentional with culture and leadership, all the things, right? Like, I mean, we're not perfect, but man, there's a lot that goes into this organization. And so as a result, yes, there should be some great outcomes. But to the level where we're at, it's like, gosh, only God can do that.
Right. I think if there's ever any sense of demand or entitlement or, I don't know, those sort of emotions might be clues that you are not in a place of contentment, that you've been working with this entitlement attitude that it should result in this, whereas contentment is just like, man, all is grace.
Yes. Yes, absolutely. And that's what brings the peace, right, of your heart ultimately. And living in that, and in a world that we had a speaker for our company this morning, and he talked about anxiety and how it's kind of just like all over the place right now with our culture. And there's so many reasons because of that, how connected we are all the time and different reasons. But ultimately, I'm like, peace is so lacking in our world today too. So I think even what the person you talked to, when they said that to you, of just like, hey, stop wanting, just be for a little bit. Like, I think it's so healthy. So good.
So tell me what led you to write a journal, because this is a very new project for you. It's very contemplative. It's really this beautiful book that you invite us on this journey to walk with you through this journey to contentment. What was sort of the trigger for you that helped you realize we teach what we need to learn? So
no, it's so true, right? Well, out of my last book, Love Your Life, Not Theirs, I talked a lot about comparisons and how that not only affects who you are and how you function in life, but it affects your money ultimately, because you end up spending money, and sometimes money you don't have to keep up this lifestyle that you think everyone else is living and you're missing out on. And that comparison game is so real. And we don't really talk about the financial side effects of it, but man, they're everywhere. So that's what that main book was about. And so out of that kind of came that contentment and that gratitude message. And I think I just realized out of that, people gravitated toward those kind of things. And also in my own life, I'm like, it is sometimes hard to just to say, I'm going to be content and just say it and be, right? I think that there is a little bit of this process. And so as I was thinking through it, I'm like, man, it takes some time and it takes kind of forming new habits. And it really is this journey. And so in my head, I was like, well, I talk about gratitude leads to humility, which leads to contentment. And what if, we spent some time on this? And I love to journal personally. I love writing things down, and I have boxes and boxes of journals. I started this when I was in college, journaling. And so that's a big part of my story and my life and my habits. And so I was like, well, what if we kind of pair the two together and we all go on this journey, this 90-day journey through these 3 subjects. And so that's kind of where it birthed out of, honestly. So a lot of the content from the book, but also seeing the need and the want from people and in myself as well. So realizing that journey, and that it's not always just a black and white choice that you just decide to be content. Sometimes it takes our hearts a little bit to get there.
it takes practice. And I feel like that, I think anything like rest or gratitude or sort of these intangibles that we want, I think we think that some people are just more content people than others, but no, that it's very encouraging that there's actually practices that you can put in place to create an environment for contentment to grow.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely.
And so what is that environment where contentment can grow? Walk us through a little bit of your process.
Through like daily habits? Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah.
For me personally, it is starting my day off right. And for so long, I had the habit of just picking up my phone, checking email, checking Instagram and Twitter and all of that before my feet even hit the ground. Like that's where I started. And I realized, man, how I start my day really affects my attitude and the way I perceive life and the decisions I ultimately make. And so for me, starting with whether it's a quiet time, whether it's a gratitude list, I write down 2 things that I'm grateful for every morning, whether it's the Contentment Journal. I'm actually going through it right now on Instagram stories with people that are doing it too. So I've been doing that some. But I think just setting your mind and your heart right and in the right perspective first thing in the morning, because it is so easy just to pick up your phones, go ahead and dive into everyone else's life and what happened between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Not a lot, but there's still pictures up there of people, what they're doing, and catching up all of that, man, it just muddles. And I think that there is a true, physiological shift that happens in our brains. And I think so much, gosh, when you're just attached to that dang phone, and being able to put that down at the beginning of the day and really center and focus yourself on that gratitude, humility, and contentment. For me, that's been a game changer.
That's so true. Did you actually change where you stored your phone?
That's so funny you ask. No, but the speaker, again, I was hearing this morning talking about some of this. I literally had the thought, gosh, I know people that do this. They put their phone on the other side of the room. And I'm like, I need to do that. I have not done that. My alarm is my phone, which this is how lazy I am. I'm like, oh, that means I'm going to have to get out of bed to go turn off my alarm. But I probably should do that, right? I haven't, but I had that thought this morning. That's so funny you asked. So maybe I should. Maybe I'm going to do it tonight as an experiment and see how I feel.
Well, our daughter, she just turned 13 and she's been saving for a phone. So she got a phone. It's been about a month.
Yes.
And we have a docking station. So
Love that.
No phones in the bedrooms is the rule in our home. And this morning she was on her phone. She wasn't in her bedroom, but she was texting with a friend. I'm like, it's 7 a.m. Really? I mean, come on. Like, she hadn't made her bed yet. She hadn't eaten her breakfast. And I just noticed that her mindset was just different when she was already distracted, And so there is something to that morning routine. And by the way, they sell old school alarms like at Target. You can get one of those digital alarms and you don't have to get out of bed. You can just put on your little nightstand.
That's right. Totally right. I know I can just Amazon one to my door. I don't even have to leave my house to get this alarm you're talking about. I can have it shipped right to me.
So true. Just get on that phone.
No
my gosh. I have to be out of sight, out of mind. I mean, oh my gosh. Yeah, I'm bad.
We started that, Winston, my husband and I, when we came home from work. I started just putting my phone in my room, charging it, and just leaving it there on my nightstand. And then I come back out to the living room and the kitchen. And of course, I end up needing a recipe or something. So more than likely, I'll end up having to go get it. But man, during those times when it is not near me and in sight, like you're saying, oh, it's so freeing. And the kids, I mean, my 4-year-old, she wants to play a game or, it's just amazing, these devices. I'm not thinking that they're just absolutely evil, but man, they just suck the life out of all of us, no matter what your age is.
Well, it's kind of like money, right? It's like we can't be in a world without money. And it's not that money is evil. It's the love of money. And so our devices, it is this place of it's not the device itself is evil or bad. It's how are we attached to it? How are we using it? And how is it causing distraction? And
the dependency. I know I'm not an expert on all of this. So as I'm speaking, I'm like, gosh, I hope I'm not giving false information. But there's a guy I work with and he read a study. It was an article. He has not sent it to me. So I was like, oh, I want to hear it. But even us mapping everything, even using our Google Maps and not going somewhere by memory, truly, it's just the function of your brain, the parts that start to shut down because we are so dependent on those phones. I'm like, man, I wonder if we're going to look back in a decade, and say, gosh, how it, it brings some conveniences, absolutely. But the harm that it's done, we may not even know the effects. And that is kind of scary.
I think, it's been about a decade. So I think that they're now starting to do studies that are going to show us some of these things. And I think we're going to have more data-informed decisions that are going to inform some of these habits.
That's good, because you even talking about your child getting a phone breaks me out in hives. I'm like, I don't even know where I will start with that when our kids are that age. I'm like, oh my gosh, that's a scary part of parenting that I am not ready for.
I know, girl. I mean, she was the last one at her school to get a phone.
Good for you. Seriously, props to you as a mom. Because I'm like, man, how do you know when they're, all these questions? I'm like,
I know. But even now, I kind of wish that now I mean, 7th grade, come on, she's a girl. They text. I mean, this is how so I'm very happy for that. It's, the friendship stuff. But even she has said, when I asked her to reflect on the last few weeks, what are some positives? What are some negatives? And she immediately said, well, the negatives, I'm a lot more distracted.
Wow.
What do we do?
What so insightful 13-year-old.
They are.
A part of me was like, I just want to freeze my 4-year-old. And I thought, no, I don't want to do that. I do want her to get a little bit more older.
I don't know. Freeze 9, maybe 9. That's
9. That's good. That's the good age. That's the good age.
I don't know about 4. My boys are 9 and 10, and I'm definitely okay, let's freeze the moment right now.
That's good. I love it.
Yeah, but I mean, okay, this is getting really deep on a very random comment, but even that ability, that thought of like when something's really good and we just want to grab onto it, that is this whole idea of not being content. You know what I mean? Like there is this contentment of right now, like what if all I ever wanted is this moment that I have right now? And I didn't have to grab onto it because it's so good, or I didn't have to want more of it because it's so good, or I didn't have to want less of it. But there is this, I don't know, girl. I'm like, your book and that podcast you with Christy, it really has launched me on this journey of wanting to really dig in and practice this idea of contentment.
I love it. Oh, I love it. I know it is. And that's the great thing is I'm like, man, the learning and the self-awareness too grows you so much as a person. And so that's something that I've enjoyed about myself, that I'm like, okay, good. I feel like I'm being stretched and learned. So I love that.
Yes. Which is awesome. Okay. We like to wrap up by asking our guests, how are you going scared right now in your life?
How am I going scared? Oh man. So I am starting the process of my 4th book. I'm trying to think what number it was. I was like, is this 3 or 4? And the topic, which I hate to be that annoying person. It's like, I can't tell you what it is, but it's intimidating me. It really is. It's something that I haven't really, I've done. I'm confident that I can write it, but I'm really intimidated. Books and writing are the most intimidating part of my job. I can do these interviews all day. I can do my YouTube and Facebook show. I can do podcast. I mean, I can radio, TV, media, put me on Good Morning America and I'm good. Like that stuff I feel great in. Those are my sweet spots. Writing is not. So whenever I have a book project coming up, I get scared. I get intimidated. I get self-conscious. So I'm
Suddenly you need to clean out all of your closets.
Yes, I know, right? Yes. So yeah, I'm just like at the very beginning stages of that. I'm going to get like outlines and everything approved. Actually, tomorrow we have a big meeting tomorrow about all of that.
Wow.
So I'm starting that journey again, and man, it's scary. It's scary for me. Yeah.
Now, as a personality at Ramsey Solutions, does the team kind of say, here's what we want you to write on next? Or does this come from something you're going through in your life?
Yeah, it comes from me.
Okay. So you're choosing your own poison.
Yes. But it was good because I was telling our vice president of our publishing department about all of this. And I was like, oh my gosh, you know me in books, it's kind of a joke where I'm like, okay, I can do this. I've talked myself into it. And I remember he was like, okay, but you really do want to write about this. And I was like, yes. And I said, because I'd be mad if someone else wrote it. Like if someone came out with this book, I'd be like, oh, crap, no, I could have done that. So that's the emotion I always go back to. I'm like, no, I can do this. This is fine.
Thanks so much for tuning in. Rachel was so gracious. We actually had my podcast platform completely just stop working in the middle, and we had to go get on another platform, but she just picked up right where we left off. Such a professional. I'd love for you to join me in this journey of contentment. Why don't you hop on over to Instagram, go to Jessica Honegger, 2 G's, 1 N, DM me and let me know, what are you discovering about contentment right now? It's a new journey for me, and I'm daily practicing my own list of gratitude, but even more than a list, I'm practicing being present, and I'm practicing this thought, what if all I ever wanted is what I have right now? That is my wish for you as well. Our wonderful music for today's show is by my good friend Ellie Holcomb. Going Scared is produced by Eddie Kolfholtz. And I'm Jessica Honegger. Until next time, let's take each other by the hand and keep going scared.